Gather round for the Oke Farm Pondcast with Doug Davis.
Yeah, since this is off the cuff, Curtis, and we have no idea what we're going to chat about, I wanted to share just like real time where my excitement level is. Because we've been working together on this, we're about to launch the Pasture. And I have spent the Pasture actually started at the very beginning, and a lot of people don't know this, but while much of the farm, the standing garden was kind of a working pasture with, at times it had some animals in it and there were some crops, and the orchard's been an olive orchard for 8 years now. The Pasture was a completely untouched forest land that had been, it had never been like harvested for trees in a really long time. And so when we showed up, you couldn't even walk through it. The gallberries and the palmettos were so thick. And so, even going back, gosh, if you were to go to my YouTube videos, you could probably even go back maybe 3 years now, is when we first started prep there. And so way back then, the idea was, hey, we knew from the very beginning that animals were such a large portion of the regenerative story, right? Yeah. And like, while you see them in action as they're moving through the different row crops or the different areas, we also wanted a place where they could exist if they weren't on duty in a particular set of row crops. And we wanted a place where they could congregate and people could see them. And so the idea of the Pasture was kind of from the very beginning something that we were excited about. And our view was we needed to have this really large pasture, 30, 40 acres, and we wanted to have cabins situated around the pasture so that you could go out your back porch and look out there and just have views of the cows and the sheep and all the other stuff. But simultaneously, we wanted to have the actual home site in a wooded area because, we've talked about this. I know I've talked to a lot of people, maybe not on this particular series, but the farm is comprised of lots of different villages, and every village is supposed to be very unique. And so where you live in the Standing Gardens, the whole ethos of the Standing Gardens are these shared public garden areas with cabins kind of surrounding those so that you can not only go out to pick your vegetables, but also you have these interactions with everybody else. And then the orchard, you have these cabins. It's very agrarian feeling. The cabins are tucked into an olive orchard. Well, the Pasture is supposed to be in a forest. So you have these uninterrupted views of a pasture, but your cabin's actually in the tall pines. And that's unlike anything that we've done here at the farm yet. Yeah. And so that's kind of the fun part about building the Pasture is it's so different than everything else. And as an owner here, those people that choose to join us, whichever village you live in, it has its own character. Yeah. And so I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'll let you respond, but I'm super jazzed. And I'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about like where we are. But I know you're super excited about it too, right?
Yeah, I am. There's the uniqueness of it for sure, and the beauty of it. And so when we moved in, the land had been cleared, but there wasn't any grass yet. So it was sort of hard to get a full vision of it. And then not long after that, you put in the perimeter dirt road, and so that became part of our daily routine at the end of the day. As we would take a drive around the pasture, and just taking that ride through the trees is absolutely majestic. And when you approach the farm property from Folkston, for example, on 121, there's some really nice estate lots coming in, and I've often looked at those and thought, gosh, it probably took a long time to cultivate that land and to get that estate situated just the way it is. But one of the most beautiful things about it, some of those estates, is the pasture areas where they've got livestock. Yeah. And so that's what the Pasture at the farm sort of brings in. It brings that element, which is very consistent with what you see in the area. Yeah. And there's just something that's really cool about being able to sit on your porch and have the view of the livestock right there. I mean, that pulls in, images of being out on a ranch somewhere out west, or really connects you in a way that the other villages do in their own unique way.
Exactly.
But that's
the fun
unique.
of it, is that each of them is so different. I want to come back. I want to talk a little bit about like how we laid out the pasture and a little bit of the story behind that. But I can't miss the opportunity to jump on one thing that you said that I think is so neat about the farm. Having been in development, conservation-based development specifically for the last, 25 years or so, we are and I'm going to lump myself for a moment in with the general development and building populace. We are often villainized and rightfully so. There's a lot of bad development that goes on, but it's very rare that a community, just anywhere within the states, embraces a new development, a new community. Yeah. It's very rare. Most of the time, again, even though people will flock there and they will love it, in the beginning at least, everyone's always against it. And one of the things that's been so fun about the farm at Okefenokee is, to your point about the way that the pasture is mimicking a lot of the other estates that already exist here, and the standing gardens is a working garden. Like everything that we do at the farm is a celebration of the culture here in Folkestone. Yeah. And it's not a contrived experience that is whitewashing what it means to live in the area, but rather it's a celebration. And so we've enjoyed, I can't tell you, and you probably have experienced this, when I go to town, which isn't very often, but when I do, and I have on a farm shirt, like I get attacked in the grocery store, or if I'm going to the market to get some gas or whatever the case is, like people want to hear how it's going out at the farm. Yeah. I've never experienced that before. And so when you mention that about all of the other estates around, it's true. Like we've been welcomed in as though we're locals, because what it is that we're doing fits within the fabric of this greater community here in Charlton County. So anyways, I just wanted to
that's a great point. I was thinking about that too, because that is such a unique aspect of the farm, and it didn't happen with good luck.
Right.
It's a process that has been going on for 20 years.
Right.
Jeff, who I think we've talked about, your partner and co-founder in this project, bought the property roughly 20 years ago, and has ingrained himself in the local community.
Right.
And so, it doesn't go unnoticed when we have one of our farm-to-table dinners or whatever, who's who in Charlton County and Folkestone comes out and participates. Yeah. And, it's because they do have an authentic and genuine interest in supporting the project, because it's not some national developer who's coming here and is carving up lots, and which you see that sprawl happening just across the state line. Yeah. Callahan's getting hit hard with it right now, and this is not that.
Correct.
So that has been a real joy. Now, every area is going to have its, not in my backyard folks. I haven't come across them.
Right.
And I don't think if the ones that are in Charlton County, I don't think it has anything to do with the farm. You'll see it with some controversy about what's taking place in the Okefenokee Wildlife Refuge.
Absolutely. I
think it's a minority voice or opinion about what's happening there, but and that's with respect to its nomination and soon to be confirmation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Right.
But notwithstanding that issue, we have enjoyed a fantastic relationship, and Folkestone's just a great small town.
Yeah.
It really is. The people and the families. There's heritage and there's legacy.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm going to be doing later today is going to the Folkestone Golf Club to play in the Wednesday night scramble. Oh, fun. And I do that with Richard, on a weekly basis. And
Richard's one of the guys that actually is a leader on the construction side here at the farm, and which speaks to the relational side of what it means to be here at the farm, because the actual farm team it becomes close with the owners, and so I think that's a beautiful thing. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
you,
I was just going to say,
who Richard is.
if I was ever to run into anybody in town who had a hard time with what was going on at the farm, it would be there.
Right.
And it's not.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's more we run into to folks who are working on the project in some capacity or another, whether they're a vendor or whatever. But there's always a general excitement about what's the latest at the farm when we see everybody on Wednesday night. And it's the same with the restaurants in town.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic.
So, I'm getting further away from the pasture, but I can't help it because I feel like there's such a logical progression of discussion. You mentioned something else. I just got to talk about it because I have people show up here at the farm on a fairly regular basis, increasingly within the last year. And they come to it thinking that they're visiting an agrihood. You've heard of these agrihoods?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk just a little bit about that because, I hate to ever frame something from a negative position, but I do think it's important that people understand. I mean, look, if you're watching this or listening to this, you probably already have some idea about the farm, or at least you have put us into a bucket of things that you're interested in, whether it's the regenerative agricultural side of it or really the farm-to-table living side of it. But I just want to take a moment to describe what an agrihood is and what we are, because I am not against agrihoods at all. In fact, I think there's some incredible agrihoods that people lean into. And my understanding and experience with agrihoods has historically been that it is a planned community with the inclusion of a farming element that maybe supplants a golf course or a clubhouse or a putting range, or it's the removal of one amenity, the inclusion of a new amenity, which is called a farming component, and they are anywhere from 1 to 10 to 15 acres, depending upon whether it's a 500 unit or 1,000 unit or 1,500 unit development, and so what I think it does do is it elevates the idea about what it means to see agriculture and the importance of it, to maybe even get involved. Maybe there are some programs about it. But what it doesn't do is, I don't even think they pretend to do this, it's not going to be the sustenance for the community.
Correct.
And so where we differ is, rather than having a large community with a relatively small farming theater component to it, ours is a working farm with little small villages nestled into it. And so while someone from the outside may think it sounds the same, it's really very different. And so I just thought I would mention that when we were talking about like communities in Callahan and elsewhere, like it's becoming in vogue to say you're an agrihood. Yeah. And so we again, it's not, I'm not disparaging agrihoods, but we're not an agrihood. We're a farm to table lifestyle community that is predominantly a working farm. So how does that strike you when I mention that? Well, like, what do you think? Because I know you're not as close to it as I am. Yeah. You don't hear it like I do.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit, I think, in the last talk too. But I thought about this while you were talking. You remember the gentleman who came from Australia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and this is a guy who he reached out to you,
right?
And he was touring the United States, and he was looking at specifically this agrihood concept, and because he is working on a project in Australia, and he, in addition to touring different agrihoods around the country, he also attended some workshops, some training on regenerative farming. Right. And I had the pleasure of taking him on a tour that day that he was here. I think you were out of town that day. Yep. And so we spent the day together, and he interviewed some people. He interviewed Lauren on the animal team and some others, and we looked at everything. I mean, really did a very in-depth tour of all the operations. And his immediate reaction afterwards, because obviously I was interested in his take. This is someone who has gone out and has done the legwork. I mean, he has seen what else is taking place in the country. And he said, the thing that strikes me most about this project is the intentionality behind it. You know, it's very clear that the main purpose around this project is to not sell lots and make money and disappear.
Right.
Like there's definitely something more aspirational about this place, and you can tell it in the quality of the amenities and the infrastructure and the investment in the team and everything that's going into it. And he's like, I haven't seen anything like this anywhere in the country. There's not anything like it, you know? And so that's how I make the distinction between an agrihood and what we're doing here at the farm. Is obviously there is a commercial element of it.
Sure,
the developers and the owners of the project need to make money to sell lots, but that seems to be secondary to what the core mission of this farm is, which is to create something that's completely unique in the country, a sustainable community that can feed everybody who's a part of it, can provide fresh water, can switch to go off grid if necessary, which is, in today's world, and I like to talk about that too, because we don't really talk about that in the marketing of the farm, but it's certainly, I think, in the back of everyone's mind. Certainly anybody watching this right now, and I'll turn it back over to you, but I do have a thought exercise,
Let's
experiment.
go with it. I mean, the train left the pasture, so we'll come back to that another time.
So, I was talking to Jenny last night, and Jenny's great about, she's just completely checked out of the news.
Right.
She just comes to me every few days and says, is there anything I need to know about? And that's sort of how I consume news, is like, is there anything I really need to know about?
Right.
And so there's a lot going on in the world today, and don't necessarily have to touch on any of those topics, but I just said, you know what? I think that if I had to guess, there's probably if I was going to put a percentage on it, a 10 to 12% chance that between now and the end of 2026, that the country would suffer some kind of, whether it be natural catastrophe, geopolitical event, something that would create a suspension of supply chains, potentially civil unrest, some sort of chaos at a level that was probably even beyond what we experienced in COVID. Right, 6 years ago. Now, if I had to put a number on it, I would guess that, And she was like, that's interesting. And I was like, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this into this question into AI and see what it is. So the thought experiment is, based on those circumstances, something that would lead to a significant breakdown in the supply chain, chaos, etc. What do you think that percentage is between, keeping a short time frame now, just between here and the end of the year, for example?
Well, I think that right now it would be much higher, because I think that we've only got weeks, not to get too much into the news, but with the Straits of Hormuz and with all of that going on, if that's not resolved here pretty quickly, I think the supply chain for a lot of different inputs is going to be compromised, and I think that number goes way up. Now, if it gets resolved in the next few weeks, I think we have the potential of it going back down, but my guess would be it's even higher than 12%.
How about 25%?
Wow.
25%.
1 in 4, golly.
How many people do you think, well, there's a select audience, people who are listening to this, they probably are a little bit more in touch with that and they're concerned with it. But just the general public, if you told them that, how many of them?
They're not prepared.
They're not.
They're zero preparation, and probably as a species, but certainly as a culture, we have such short-term memories, right? Like the pain inflicted from the Great Recession or the pain inflicted from COVID. It's like it's palatable for a while, but then you just get into this numbness, this malaise, and you just go on from it. And so, it's so funny. My mind goes back to, the farm isn't here absent COVID. Like COVID was the impetus, at least for the initial discussions with Jeff and me, as it relates to the farm. That's really interesting.
What's great about it is, like, we don't, just in normal conversations, we don't talk about that threat here at the farm and how we're preparing for it.
Right.
But we are prepared for it.
Yeah.
You know, we are, and I watched this. There's this. Have you heard of Peter Santinello?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been corresponding with him. I invited him to come to the farm.
Oh my gosh.
And so next time he's in the Southeast, he was going to come and stay and do a video.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's amazing. So he just released, if you follow his content, he just released a video, his last one that he did about the guy in northern Georgia.
That was the one I'd seen that preempted me to contacting. Yeah.
And I loved that one because the guy that he was interviewing, he was like, he used to like consider himself a prepper.
Right.
But he's like, now I've created all the infrastructure where I live, where I just don't have to worry about those things anymore.
Yeah. And that's such a better way to think about it.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I tell people, because, we have folks from all over the country. In fact, we have a lady from England who's actually moving here in probably about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So we have folks coming from all over the world as well. But most people that come here are interested in what it looks like to live well, right? Like that's their daily focus, and that's what I want to focus on too. Every once in a while, I'll have someone ask this question, and we're prepared for it.
Yeah.
And I talk about, we actually have a full-blown, what I describe as a resiliency plan in case of, an event that neither of us ever want to have happen. But you're right.
It's a nice byproduct.
I think it's an important
fringe
component
benefit,
of it. Yeah, fringe. I like the way, and it's certainly, I don't want to wake up every day thinking like that.
Yeah.
Like I want to wake up thinking, what programs are we working on to engage the owner so that they build a deeper relationship with themselves, with their surroundings, they're more interconnected with the land. That's the way I want to live my life. But, if there's a 1 in 4 chance, that's gosh.
So just expanding upon that and setting that aside, setting that risk aside, but talking about all the benefits that come with living at the farm, the things that are sort of highest on the list are the being connected with one another, being connected to the land, building a community, regenerative farming practices.
Yeah.
Like it's all of these things packaged together, the resiliency aspect of it.
Yeah.
That again gets back to that, and I think I mentioned it last week. Yeah, it's probably not a model that's going to be able to be available to everybody in the world.
Right.
But if we were to, and I say we, the global community was in a position to start moving more people out of concentrated, urban areas into communities that had these elements to it.
Right.
It addresses so many issues going on in the world. So many things get taken care of, and it is a return to, in many ways, to a lot of traditions of the past.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that people did in communities that we've lost for a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, a lot of relationships.
I got to stop you there for a second. Think I was listening to something the other day, and it just really hit me. Everybody knows this. This won't be a shock to anybody, but the way it was crystallized fits so well into what you're describing. When we're in, because you're really describing kind of a decentralized community, a way of living that is very much focused on regional and local production of both resources, whether it's foods or labor or whatever else, which, by the way, we excel at because we prioritize that here. But a byproduct of that is if you go to the other end of the continuum and you look at the digital world, we've arrived at a place where people will say almost anything to one another and will be as cruel as possible, inhumane, and it's like, it's just ubiquitous, right?
Yeah,
like it's everywhere. And whenever you decentralize and you're living around people and you're building relationships, I mean, because I'm describing the digital world, but how many people live in a neighborhood that they don't even know their next door neighbors, right? Like, it's still, it doesn't have to be digital. It can just be in the, modern world.
Yeah.
Whenever you start thinking about a lifestyle like this, you know your neighbors, and the level of unintentional empathy goes way up, because you're even if you wouldn't affiliate necessarily with one of the people that you know out here in another life, you get to know them at a level that you care for them and they care for you, and it's just different, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so the relational side of it is such an important piece of what we're doing here.
Yeah. It breaks down. It breaks down the alienation and polarization you have from people when you're I mean, Jenny and I have had some great conversations with some people, just Walter Parks, who was visiting the farm, spent some time with him the other night, some new residents that are moving in that we got to meet, and you instantly feel that, even if you don't necessarily agree with things going on in the world, there is a common respect that we're, I believe, as human beings, we're wired to grant one another.
Exactly.
And it reminds me of, are you familiar with the Dunbar number? That's one of those things that I think that we have lost. With the Dunbar being, I'm going to butcher what it is, but basically, humans lived in communities where they sort of maximized the number of relationships that they had, somewhere around 150.
Okay.
Right, and within 150, if you had 150 people, that were in your community or in your network, the human brain is able to keep enough personal details about everyone that you don't need things to intermediate trust, for example, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need organizations to whether it be banks or anything else. Like everybody trusts one another because you know them. You know, you've got a story with them. Yeah. And I remember, I read about that years and years ago, and it's just a thing that had always stuck with me, because in this hyper digitalized world that we live in now, with social media and everything else, and people counting the number of followers that they have and connections that are not based in real life, then I think it scrambles our internal wiring.
It does,
and it does make things that we would not. It makes it easier for us to take actions and say things that we would not if we were sitting across from one another, if we're living in community with one another.
And think of the influence too. I mean, you're just talking about like the likes and the followers and stuff. Imagine how folks who are deeply into that's a part of their daily life. Imagine the impact that people who will never know them, who don't have their best interests at heart, imagine the impact that's actually even having on them, And so, again, I don't think either one of us are saying we shouldn't have social media.
No.
I mean, we use it. I think it's important for speech, for communication, but I think we have to live in this tension between that, but then also with what we're doing out here. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you can move back and forward between the two of them. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for technological advances, we wouldn't have been able to move out here. Jenny and I still work full-time jobs, and the thought of moving outside of an urban or suburban area was unknown to us for all kinds of reasons. Even if we could have worked remotely 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had necessarily the technology infrastructure to be able to do it. Agreed. And with things like Starlink, being able to shrink the world for for people to be able to use their computers and systems to be able to communicate and work jobs and all that. That really is the blending of these two aspects here at the farm: living authentically,
being connected to the land, being able to get out in nature, but to still be connected to the modern world and to have jobs and provide professional services and do all those things, you know.
So I think we're coming right up on the time. I've got an idea. I've been meeting with the same group of guys for 10, 12 years now, and we always end our time together with what we call the one-word close. So how about we close this out? You pick one word that captures the way that you feel about our discussion today. You say that, and then you say, I'm out.
Okay. You want me to go first?
Or I can.
Yeah,
I
it'd
can
be
go.
easier if you went first.
I'll go first. Okay. Relationships, and I'm out.
Interconnected, and I'm out.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.